this in the first 2 minutes of your interview and stand out. What if I told you the first 2 minutes of your interview often shape everything that follows? Not because the interviewer has already made a final decision, but because in those first few minutes, you either establish yourself as someone who can solve their problems, or you become just another candidate with a good resume. And if you are over 40 or over 50, this matters even more, because your goal is not to explain everything you have done during your career. Your goal is to make the interviewer want to hear more. The mistake most experienced candidates make most experienced professionals start with something like this. I've been in the industry for 25 years. I've managed teams of 50 people. I've worked for several major companies. I've been responsible for operations, sales, and customer service. Here is the problem. None of that immediately tells the hiring manager why you matter to them. It describes your history, but it does not explain your value. And remember, they are not interviewing you because they are interested in hearing your entire career story. They are interviewing you because they have a problem they need solved. Maybe sales are not growing. Maybe the team lacks leadership. Maybe turnover is too high. Maybe operations are inconsistent. Maybe costs are increasing. Or maybe they need someone who can walk into the position and start producing results quickly. That is what your answer needs to address. What to say? Instead, when they ask, "Tell me about yourself," do not begin at the start of your career. Instead, say something like this: "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. From everything I've learned about this role, it seems like you're looking for someone who can improve operations, build a strong team, and deliver measurable results. Those are areas where I've produced some of my best results. In my most recent roles, I've helped increase revenue, improve profitability, strengthen purchasing and inventory controls, reduce turnover, and build teams that performed more consistently. I'd love to use our time today to share a few specific examples of how I've done that, and how I could help your organization achieve similar results." Now, notice what just happened. You did not simply repeat your resume. You showed that you understand what they need. You positioned yourself as someone who produces outcomes, and you gave the interviewer a reason to ask you deeper questions. You shifted the conversation away from your past and toward their business. A simple 4-part formula. Your answer should have 4 parts. First, explain the type of problems you solve. For example, I'm an operations and sales leader who helps companies improve profitability, strengthen teams, and create more consistent processes. Second, give 2 or 3 results. You might say, "In my most recent role, I helped grow revenue, improve inventory control, reduce employee turnover, and expand a struggling operation into multiple successful locations." Third, connect your experience directly to their need. For example, "What interested me about this position is that you're looking for someone who can improve performance while developing a strong team. That is where I've created some of my best results." And fourth, explain why you are interested. You might finish with, "I'm at a point in my career where I want to bring that experience into a position where I can make an immediate contribution and help build something meaningful." That entire response should take about 45 to 60 seconds, not 5 minutes, not your entire work history, just enough to establish your value and create interest. Why this works. Hiring managers hear about experience all day long. They hear, "I have 20 years of experience. I'm a hard worker. I'm a people person. I'm a fast learner." Those statements may be true, but they are not especially memorable. What hiring managers do not hear often enough is confidence paired with relevance. A strong opening tells them, "I understand the problem you are trying to solve. I have solved similar problems before, and I can explain how I would create value here." That is powerful, because companies do not hire years. They hire judgment, they hire leadership, they hire results, and most importantly, they hire solutions. A real-world hiring example. Years ago, I interviewed 2 candidates for a leadership position. The first candidate had the stronger resume. He had more years of experience, larger job titles, and a long list of responsibilities. But most of the interview was focused on what he had done in the past. The second candidate came in and quickly explained how he would improve service levels, reduce unnecessary inventory, and strengthen accountability within the team. He asked better questions. He focused on the business, And he made it easy for us to picture him solving our problems. Guess who stood out? It was not necessarily the person with the most impressive resume, it was the person who made his experience relevant to what we needed. That is the difference. What not to say. Do not begin with, well, I've been working for about 30 years. Do not say, as you can see from my resume, and do not walk through every position you have held since the beginning of your career. Also avoid apologizing for your age, a layoff, a career gap, or being considered overqualified. Do not begin the interview by defending yourself. Begin by establishing your value. If you were recently laid off, you do not need to hide it, but you also do not need to make it the center of your introduction. You can say, my position was recently eliminated as part of an organizational change. I'm proud of what I accomplished there, and I'm now focused on finding the right opportunity where I can bring that experience and produce meaningful results. Then move forward. Keep it factual. Keep it brief. And return the conversation to what you can contribute. If you are changing industries, focus on transferable results, for example. My background has been in wholesale distribution, but the work I've done, improving profitability, developing teams, strengthening operations, and managing customer relationships, transfers directly into this role. The industry may change, but leadership, communication, judgment, sales, operations, and problem-solving remain valuable. Bonus tip. Before every interview, spend at least 15 minutes studying the job description. Ask yourself, what problem are they trying to solve? Why does this position exist? What seems to be missing today? And what would success look like 6 months from now? Then make sure every answer you give points back to those questions. Do not make the interviewer figure out how your experience fits. Explain the connection for them. That is how experienced professionals separate themselves from everyone else. Practice without sounding rehearsed. Write your opening answer down, then shorten it. Practice it out loud several times. But do not memorize every word. Memorize the structure, the problems I solve, the results I have produced, why those results fit this company, and why I want the opportunity. That helps you sound prepared without sounding robotic. And if the interviewer interrupts you with a question, stop and answer it. That is not necessarily a bad sign. It may mean something you said caught their attention. The goal is not to deliver a speech. The goal is to begin a strong conversation. Close. The first 2 minutes of your interview are not the time to explain your entire career. They are the time to establish your value. Start with the problems you solve. Back it up with measurable results. Connect your experience to what the employer needs. And finish with a clear reason you want the role. If you are over 40 or over 50, do not compete only on years of experience. Compete on clarity. Compete on relevance. Compete on your ability to make the business better. You do not need to be the youngest candidate in the room. You need to be the candidate who makes it easiest for the interviewer to understand why hiring you would help their organization. That is what gets remembered, and that is how you stand out. Subscribe to Next Role Advisor for practical advice on interviews, career transitions, staying relevant, and preparing for your next opportunity after 40.